Tarik. Hi, Kristen.
Hey.
Oh.
Hey, Emily. Hey,
Ready
Tarik.
to talk about sync?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, I'm Emily Roman. I work at Warner Records in the film and TV department.
I'm Kristen Hosack. I'm the senior music supervisor at Saatchi and Saatchi, overseeing the LA and Dallas offices.
And I'm Tarik Bradford. I run Dahomey Music Enterprises, a film and TV sync licensing and publishing company based out of Los Angeles.
And we're going to answer 3 questions about sync that hopefully help anyone with some clarity on this kind of crazy little part of the industry. First question, what are the most important factors when placing a record for sync? What do you guys think?
There's different levels, and it depends on the medium. Film is not the same as it is for advertisement, and it's not the same for advertisement it is for film trailers. So it really depends. Some of the basic things that are important for sync are relatable topics. And that's kind of one thing that is broad across the board. So songs that are about life, loss, rising, overcoming struggle, dealing with the struggles of life, pain, just kind of your basic, life experiences are topic-wise the most important things that come up the most often for licensing of your music. And then in terms of the sound, it really just depends on the project. For example, for promos and a lot of times for commercials, they tend to be more upbeat and feel good because they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to get you to watch a television show or buy a product. So those aren't usually going to be down-tempo, depressing songs. They're usually going to be up-tempo, feel good songs that make you want to go out and either see the TV show or see the film or purchase Tide or whatever the product might be. And then for trailers, it depends on kind of the product as well. If it's an action movie, then you might hear, the big blaring drums, horns, stuff that makes it feel exciting and action based. And then, for a TV show, you might have a scene that wants something that's a little more down tempo that goes along with a scene where it's emotional and kind of adds to the characters and what's going on. So it really just depends on the scene and the project.
I think also basic quality of the production, originality, like you said, Tarik, the sound quality, themes, like you mentioned, just basic, specific messaging. And then also clearance, like understanding where all parties kind of lie for the song. And if it's a clearable song, are there samples? Is the supervisor able to reach out to every party for clearance? These are kind of my 5 indicators. Yeah.
I mean, I think also a song that doesn't sound like it's trying too hard to be a song for sync. I think a lot of times sometimes I'll get pitched music from artists or labels that, this would be a perfect song for X because it feels really expected based on whatever the brand is or like the concept. But I feel like sometimes we're not looking for the on the nose musical option. We're looking for something that's more organic and real, like something that sounds like a real song and not something that was written to spec. That's not to say that songs that are needed, like written to a spec and needing to be overtly like obvious aren't needs, because those definitely are. I think that the more frequent that one is in which a song sounds like authentically original.
And also budget, I think, is an important thing as well, to know what the budget is for a project and where a songwriter or a song fits within that budget. A songwriter like Bono is going to have a completely different budget than your local indie artist. So knowing those things, and like Kristen mentioned, or like Emily mentioned, how many songwriters are on there, how many publishers are involved, how many labels are involved, how many clearances have to exist, does a supervisor or studio or network have to go through to clear the song, because that can affect, the decision on moving forward with the song and also the budget as well.
Even for indie artists, if you're delivering a song, like I totally recommend putting all this information in metadata form to anyone that you're maybe sharing the song with, just so it's easily accessible. And hey, like there's 3 writers, but they're all independently published, or they have ASCAP or BMI accounts, and this is everything that you would need to kind of go clear the song.
I was going to say another thing that I look for specifically when looking for music is when I reach out, I want music that may never have been licensed before, or that hasn't had any past use in the last 5 years, or definitely hasn't had any current use in the last couple of years on a competitor, because it's definitely something that we'll look for when, again, we're looking for something with originality. I mean, when you look at those older songs that are more legacy, it's hard because they've been licensed so much. So I think that's one of the things that of value that new and emerging artists bring to the table, is that their sound is unique to them, and that's great. That's why we need it.
All right, I think we covered that question.
I think we got it.
So confident. Next question: what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about the process of getting music placed for sync? What do you find yourself explaining over and over? I think we touched on some of these already. I think making some of the same points very easily accessible, clearance, or not being too on the nose with themes, making sure the sound quality is good. But I also think that sync is its own little world, and we can't guarantee anything. And that's something that, I think it has to fit right with the show and what the actual project is, and if it meets all the requirements for the actual project.
I think there's also some just like the way in, like what are artists' way into the people who control the music narrative, right? Like music supervisors, music producers, showrunners, directors, all of that. Like for a lot of music supervisors, whoever they work for, they can accept any submission of music from any artist. Like they can listen to anything that's sent to them that's like a cold email. For other people like me, I can't listen to anything unsolicited. So I can only listen to music that I ask labels and publishers for. So I think that when I get artists emails every day, like, oh, this song would be perfect for this, or I saw this commercial and it reminded me of this song that I wrote. Like, I love those emails, and like, I wish I could read them, but I can't. So my response always in those situations is, if you're repped at all by like a sync agency, or if you have publisher representation or label representation, or your management company has a newsletter, like have them send me this information about you through their normal communication channels, and then I can review it, which is interesting. I know it's probably really frustrating for a lot of artists. So I really encourage, people who are struggling with making connections with music supervisors to like figure out another way in that's more like music house to music person. That makes sense.
There's so many amazing like indie companies out there and people to talk to.
Yeah.
And I'll add on to what Emily said. For me, the biggest misconception is that getting music placed in film, TV, or advertisements is easy, and that all it takes, even if you have a label, a publisher, or a rep, are just the want and desire to have your song in a film, TV show, or commercial. Or people constantly think that their song is, I think Kristen already said, in quotes, perfect for sync. I've yet to meet an artist who said, oh, my music doesn't work for sync. Like, everybody thinks that their song is perfect for sync, and that it should be in the biggest and brightest ads, TV shows that are out there. And not that it shouldn't, but that I think Emily made a good point of that it's its own world, and that you are trying to add a song into a place that's already a very crowded market. And you have to understand that and really know that it's more of a marathon building up a catalog, as opposed to you record 10 songs and then you expect those 10 songs to all get synced. Or, I come from the major label world, and a lot of times, even within the building, the biggest push was from the marketing teams or the A&R teams, who thought, well, this is the single, you have to go get a placement for that. And the sync world doesn't care about that. The blessing and the curse of sync is you can have a hit record and nobody cares about it in sync, or you can be like an indie artist from Silver Lake or Brooklyn or Ohio, and you can have your song in a TV show or commercial. It doesn't matter. Sometimes you will have situations where people specifically want a hit song and they'll call that out, but a large part of what people are looking for are just songs that fit, which is great. It opens it up for everybody, but the downside is it opens it up for everybody. So someone like Kristen or somebody at Warner Pictures or any studio or network or independent supervisor is getting hundreds and thousands of emails with music every day. And all of those are single songs, albums, playlists over and over and over. So any artist who wants their song placed for sync, they need to understand that it's not most likely going to be a situation where you have a song that's coming out in March, you start pitching it March 1st, and you get a placement in April or May or June. In 6 months, it may be 9 months, it may be a year. And you can't get frustrated with that, because it's like I always tell artists that I work with and people who do what I do, that sync placement is a game of failure. It's like, I love sports metaphors, it's like baseball, where if you get 3 out of 10, you're an all-star. So if I send Kristen 100 songs and she uses 30, like, I'm killing it. That's not probably going to happen, no matter who the artist is that you're working with. It can be the biggest artist in the world, or it can be like an indie artist, or everybody who falls in between. It's it's a game of trying to find the right song at the right time for each project, and it's not personal, and it's not something that you should take personal when those placements don't come. It's just kind of, you have to continue to work and write and make it a part of the puzzle that you're putting together, instead of just the end all be all.
And I think a large part of my job on the pitching side is the extensive research part of upcoming projects, and taking detailed notes of different briefs from supervisors or production places, and trailers or movies coming out, just to know where kind of I can pitch the catalog, where it fits the best, because ultimately that's what's going to be the slam dunk in hopefully getting a sync.
Then the second part, you said, what do I find myself explaining over and over again? Let me see, how can I put this in a nice way? That nobody owes you a placement, that everybody is working really hard on their projects. Every artist is working really hard on their songs. And the best thing that you can do is prepare and make sure that you have everything ready to go and that you're consistently writing. It's no different than getting your song to some degree on the radio. It takes a lot of work, and a lot of the stars have to line up for you to get those opportunities. Now, you can put yourself in the best situation to get it, but there's no guarantee, and there's no sense of, well, I sent this to Emily 15 times and she's never used it, or I sent this to this supervisor and they've never used it. Or feedback. Like a big misconception, I think, is that every time someone like me sends a song to someone like Kristen, she sends back a detailed response on every song that I sent her. And that's not how it works. It's, I'm getting music to her. I'm trying to balance between responding to briefs that she may send out, and also making her and other clients aware of the music that I'm representing, without any expectation that they are going to say, oh, Tarik sent this out for New Music Friday, now I'm going to review this entire album and give him a response on every song on the album, or any song on the album. I don't have those expectations. My expectations are to hopefully stay in the loop when projects come up, and to make sure that the music that I represent is considered and in the mix for opportunities. And that's pretty much it. That's the whole expectation that I have, is to get the artists that I represent, on the radar of supervisors and studios and networks. But I know that I'm sending out an incredible amount of music, and I even try to balance that between the music that I'm listening to, and trying to be considerate of what people are working on themselves, and not oversend music, and not send music out that isn't the right fit. Mm-hmm. So if I'm working with, a death metal band, I'm probably not going to send that album to Kristen, because that's really highly unlikely that it's going to be in an advertisement. Yeah. Not because I'm not a fan of the band.
You never know.
Because
I don't know. I don't want to be put in that box.
I'm about to hit you with all kinds of death metal tomorrow.
I can't wait.
So
Can't
it's
wait
that,
for that.
It's really true though. You never know. You never
that
know.
balance of making sure that people have the music
Mhm.
without trying to overemphasize a certain area that like, oh, okay, like you have the music, but there are certain projects that work better for film or better for
Yeah.
TV or better for commercial, and trying to keep that in mind and send people things that I know that they're looking for. Pay attention to, I think Emily said a good thing, pay attention to what the briefs actually say. And I make it a point to, if I don't have anything that fits, then I just don't send anything. And not sending something just because it's a priority or it's someone who's really desperate for a sync, but actually trying to assist the clients, the supervisors, with doing their job. And I think that's the big part of it, is that it's, kind of checking your ego and realizing that you're trying to help somebody do a job and not just trying to get a placement for your client. You're trying to do both. But the reason that I know for me that even going independent, I've been independent for the past 9 years. And before that, I was at labels for 18 years. The reason I feel like I've had success is I think clients know that they can trust me to send songs to them that they actually can use. Even if it doesn't fit, it makes sense why I sent that song.
Mhm.
If Kristen asked me for a pop song with up tempo and feel good, I'm not going to send her a down tempo, dark and moody electronic song. Just simple things like that. So I think the biggest misconception is that all it takes is me calling or emailing Kristen every day, and then she's just going to use that song because I just bug the hell out of her. And it doesn't really work like that.
I think another misconception is that if you don't get a response back that the music wasn't listened to or that it wasn't reviewed or that you were ignored. And that's not true either. Like, I think that, artists should understand, and writers should understand that, like, just as they are like crazy in their worlds and like trying to field a lot of moving balls in the air, like so are we. And if someone says that they would review all of your music, I think that you can trust that they did, and that if they didn't get back to you, it's not personal, and it wasn't because they didn't like it. It might just be because of one of a myriad of other reasons, like another song that they were looking at previously worked out, or the brief changed, or something, they decided to score something original instead of licensed. Like, there are a lot of scenarios that can arise that can cause a project to pivot. And don't take it personally about your craft and artwork. Like, continue doing what you love, and like you'll get there. Another one I would say is also, knowing that you have a good song and just sort of waiting for the cards to fall into place. I think it's really important to be strategic about the people that you surround yourself with professionally and with your business, and who you decide you want to have represent your music. Who is your manager? Do you have an agent? Like, understanding the ins and outs of music licensing so that you know how and what to ask for when you are considering a sync deal. I think that those are all really important things too to pay attention to if you want to. I mean, not everybody has that level of skill set and they want to just be creative. So if you don't want to do that, make sure you have people around you who you trust who are doing it for you, and just so that you're being business savvy as well as creative.
What do you wish artists did more of, either artistically or business wise? I think it's a good segue into what you kind of said, Kristen. I always say take a chance in writing or trying something new. I think especially for indie artists, pigeonholing themselves as like one genre makes it extremely more hard to work out for sync. I would say, like, get in uncomfortable positions writing with different types of writers or working with different types of producers, and really figure out maybe what your niche is. It might be totally something different than your mainstream releases or anything that you put on Spotify, but you could be really good at writing anthemic pop songs. And it's not always going to be a slam dunk every time you work with different or collaborate with different people or writers. But I think it's a really good exercise for artists to kind of figure other opportunities for sync out that way.
Yeah, I'd say like lots of collaborating, working with a lot of different people, doing writers camps or artist camps, or pushing yourself into uncomfortable spaces to see if you're interested in maybe another genre, like you just said, Emily, or doing something different. I think that's all, continuing to grow is really important.
And I would say there's two things. For one, it's kind of adding on to what Emily said. get outside of your comfort zone, write more songs. I think that's the biggest thing, is to build up a catalog of songs with different subjects and different ideas, stuff that may not go on an album, that are just kind of ideas that you write down in different characters. I love to see songwriters get outside of their comfort zone and write things that maybe wouldn't be for their band project or for a particular album, but are just a great song or a great idea that they had. Write those kind of projects, and I think that helps them develop that skill of being able to write and put themselves in different positions beyond just the single spot that they're known for being in.
And then I guess business-wise, going off what Kristen was talking about previously, just surrounding yourself with a really good team or friends or people that you can kind of ask questions about. I do have to say that our community is amazing, and I think people do want to help a lot of indie artists. And like Kristen said, don't take it as your music wasn't listened to or considered, because I know a lot of people out there really do take into consideration a lot of new music that comes their way.
Yeah. And stay active in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well, to kind of ingratiate yourself to the community. That was the second thing I lost my train of thought I was going to mention, is do some basic things like actually watch television, watch movies, and watch commercials, and pay attention to the music that's in those projects, so that you're not just thinking blindly, oh, I wrote a song about a hospital, so this should be on Grey's Anatomy. Like, actually watch some shows and watch some films and watch some TV shows and commercials and see what the music is that they use in there. I used to do this a long time ago. It's kind of impossible to do now with all the streaming services, but I used to commit myself to watching 2 episodes of every TV show, just so I had an idea of the kind of music that they used, the characters. And now with so many different projects going on, that's hard to do. But instead of just picking the most popular shows that are out there and saying, oh, I want my song on Grey's Anatomy or Insecure, make sure that you're watching those shows and watching other shows and seeing the types of songs that are being used, and then see where your music fits, so that you're not just thinking, okay, I have this type of reggae song, this should automatically be on this show. Like, watch those shows and pay attention to the music that they use. There's you can Shazam those songs. There's a really great website called tunefind.com, where you can see the majority of the music that's placed, at least in television shows, and you can look and see what each show has used on there. It's a great place to reference and see, hey, where does my music, my style fit within this world of licensing? Because the most important thing to remember is that the projects aren't made, films, TV shows, and commercials generally aren't made with music in mind. It's the other way around. You're trying to fit your music into those projects, and it's just another character that goes along with that. So finding the spot for those is important. In that way, you can have kind of targeted pitches. If you have, really great singer-songwriter music, maybe there's a show where they use a lot of that kind of music. Or if you're a hip-hop artist, what shows use a lot of hip-hop, what supervisors use a lot of hip-hop, and that way you can target them and not just send music to people that don't really work with that style, or not focus on that. Even if you send it out to people, you may want to have some more strategic targets. You said hopefully people pick some things up, and pick up some tips that can help them in their own journey, because it is a long journey. It's not to discourage anybody, but it is something that's not an overnight process. It is something that you build towards. So I think everything that all of us had to say today is to encourage people and to give them some tips and some insight onto what works, whether you're on the songwriter side, whether you're on the business side, just some hopefully helpful tips that can help people to say, like, oh, okay, let me work on this. Let me make sure that I have the proper contact information and metadata in my songs. Another thing that I think should be important is how you're delivering the music. I wanted to mention that. I just thought about that, because you don't want to send big MP3 and WAV files and emails to people's inbox. That's a sure way to get your email deleted. You want to use some type of file sharing service that people use, whether it's Disco, which is kind of a newer one that people use, or Box, something where people can stream it and download it so that it doesn't, take up so much space on their computer is important as well.
Before we end this, let's talk a little bit about Sound Initiative.
So Sound Initiative is a board of 8 to 10 supervisors, music licensing people on the publishing side, label side, who last summer, in the wake of the George Floyd situation and a lot of the social unrest, decided to come together to do something to, at least in our industry, help Black songwriters and artists find how to connect their music and get their music placed in film and TV, and provide information, support, connections if they needed, representation, and just kind of an overall education about how to get their music placed in film and TV, because it's a question that comes up quite a bit. I have artists in several different genres who either aren't familiar with film and TV licensing as a business revenue for them as independent artists, or they just have no idea how to do that without being with a label, without being a publisher, and just where to even start, or how to write songs that work well for sync, and what's considered, what genres people are looking for, what a music supervisor is. So we formed this board last summer, I believe, and we just started asking artists to sign up so we can just start the process of educating them, putting them together with mentors or people that may want to represent their music, and just kind of an overall sync representation and education format for Black artists who want to get their music placed in film and TV and want to know the steps that they should take. And so we've all come together, and we're still in the process of getting everything organized, but we've started to matchmake different songwriters with some longtime music executives to work with them and kind of help educate them on what works for sync, and some, maybe even that may even turn into sync representation deals, because some of the people who have signed up work at labels, work at publishing companies, or have their own sync rep organizations. And so it's just an organization just trying to help grow an area that is in a lot of need of that, and artists, especially independent artists that don't have those type of connections to know, hey, here's an outlet for me to get my music to, and see how I can grow my opportunities in the film and TV world.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you, ASCAP, for having us. It's been really fun chatting with you, Kristen and Tarik. And
you as well. Thanks for having us. Good to see you all.
Thanks, ASCAP.
Okay.
Yeah,
You too.
All right. Bye.